G'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle. The dust has settled on the list management phase of this off-season. The rookie draft is completed and we ended up adding Malachi Champion to our list. The exact mechanics of how we did it, I'm not aware. Like, did he become a Cat B rookie and we upgraded someone else? I don't know. Either way, we've got Malachi, it doesn't matter. And we still hold a list spot available for a preseason, what's it called? A SSP supplemental list. I forget the exact name, but the idea is we can have players train on with us over the preseason, and at some point during the preseason before round one, there's a cutoff date where we can sign one player to our list. Now, we've got Kobe Bergiel training with us. He's definitely a contender. I did see something today. We've got Sandy Brock, who used to be a Gold Coast listed player as a key defender. I think he was drafted from Peel Thunder, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not sure if he's West Australian originally. Anyway, there's a few options that I won't necessarily focus on in today's video. Today's video, I think I'm going to have a look at our best 23 in both the AFL side and the WAFL competition. Now, I did do this. I've made some tweaks, and of course, we know who our new recruits are, and we can get a little bit more of a reading on how we might line up in round one of 2025. Bearing in mind, this is ideal where there's no injuries. We know that's not going to be the case, touch wood. But I've had a crack at mapping out how the two teams look with these new recruits, and we get a good feel for what our list balance is. Further to that, I thought it'd be kind of a fun exercise to speculate about jumper numbers. And by the time this video comes out, we might have them already. Like, I don't know how long after the draft they come out. So to be perfectly clear, I'm not announcing what the jumper numbers are. I'm just going to map out a few ideas for how I'd like to see them shape up. It's not really based on anything other than subjective preference, and I'd imagine pretty much everyone is going to have a different opinion about which numbers we allocate. So before we get into the best 23s, we'll have a look at some jumper number allocations, or at least this is how I would do it if it was up to me. I'll get them up on the screen here. So I would probably go the most obvious, Bo Allen to keep 16. He was pick 16. Number 16 is the second best number available that we have. Number 3 is still available. I'd kind of rather we keep that open. You could hopefully, keep it for either Chad Warner next year or one of our first draftees next year, if not the first. We're going to have a pretty juicy pick, you'd think. We're going to have multiple first rounders. There's a good opportunity there to draft a gun midfielder. I think it should be kept sacrosanct. Like, the last three midfielders or players to wear that jumper were Chris Mainwaring, Chris Judd, and Andrew Gaff. All great players. Gaff's career, sort of tailed off towards the end, but in his prime, he was an absolute gun West Coast Eagle. So I think we give that jumper a year off. I have seen some suggestions that it might be Liam Baker, and I could be wrong, but I would leave it open. I'd give 17 to Liam Baker. This was, of course, Josh Kennedy's number. Daniel Chick wore it before that. I don't think it needs to be, another key forward. Another option you could go, as an aside, is if you decided to give Liam Baker number 3, you could give number 17 to one of our younger key forwards in Jack Williams and Ryan Marrick, who we'll get to later, who could also be in line for some jumper number upgrades. But that being said, I think as it currently stands, I'd go Liam Baker in the 17. Tyrell Dewar, I want to upgrade to 23. He is currently in the 43. I want to upgrade Jack Hutchinson as well. I think he's deserved an upgrade from 44 to 26. Shanahan gets 27. This is a pretty special number in West Coast Eagles history too, of course, just vacated by Jack Darling, and Glenn Jakovich had it before that. I don't think there was anyone in between, but either way, two significantly respected West Coast Eagles who were absolute champions in their time. So it's not a light number to give away, but 27 to a highly rated key position player, I like this for Job Shanahan. 31 can go to Owies, 35 to Jack Graham, 37 Hamish Davis, Tom Gross, Luca Grego, and Malachi Champion take 38, 43, and 44. 44 is currently held by Jack Hutchinson, so if I upgrade him, I'll give that to Malachi. A little bit of a romantic thing. Sometimes we give 44 to some highly rated small forwards. Not always Indigenous, but they have been in the past. Obviously, that jumper was made famous by David Wirapunda. Willie Rioli won a premiership in it for us. Noah Long had it recently. So a little bit of a romantic trend there. Give it to Malachi Champion, who I think could have a bright future at AFL level. So Marrick currently wears 41. Jack Williams wears 34. I think both of these guys are pretty close to getting jumper upgrades, in my opinion. So we could do that this year. One of them moves to 17. We could give 3 for Liam Baker. So next year, if we wanted to give a special number to Chad Warner, well, Dom Sheed seems unlikely to play beyond next year. And I say 2025 when I say next year. Number 4 is also a pretty, special jumper number in our history. Obviously won by Dom Sheed, the premiership hero, Daniel Kerr before that. And was Peter Sumich number 4? I think he might have been. Forgive me, that was before my time. So a special number there, you could leave that open. Cripps has 15, McGovern has 20. Both of these guys are turning 33 and out of contract at the end of the year. It's possible both of those numbers are available, although I have a feeling McGovern could be, not not done at the end of this coming year. Other numbers that could be vacated. Petruccelli at 21 is out of contract next year. I'm talking about 2026. These numbers might be available. Harry Barnett at 30. That is also another special number. Peter Matera and, of course, Jackson Nelson. Tyler Brockman currently holds 10, which is a really hard number. I actually can't, for the life of me, remember if he's contracted for 2 years from now or 1 year. Either way, that's just a wait and see. I'm sort of just highlighting other options for upgrades for guys like Williams, who wears 34, Marek, who wears 41. Harry Edwards still wears 42. If he has a good year, he could be another player we need to consider for a jumper upgrade. Clay Hall wears 29, and 29 is not a bad number, but if he has a really good year, breaks into the team, he could be in line for an upgrade as well. So just some ideas. It's all just about creativity, and it's not really a prediction either. Let me know in the comments what you would do differently with these numbers. For some reason, like, I'm really bad with remembering numbers. Like, I found during this exercise, I was trying to think, what number is this bloke? What number is this bloke? Used to be good at it when I was younger. Apparently not so good now. But when I see them on the field, I can generally work out who it is. It's weird. I'm just really not good with jumper numbers for some reason. And yet, I still find this a fun and interesting exercise. Anyway, let's start talking about how our team might shape up for round 1 2025. We'll start with the AFL team. So I did this exercise a few weeks back, and I've made a couple of adjustments here. Start with the back line. A lot of that is the same. I've got Ryan Marek starting as the third tall defender. I think I'd like to keep him in the team, and I'd like to experiment with him playing back. I believe he's training with the back so far in the preseason. Ruben Jimby could play that third tall defender role as well. So you could make a choice between Marek and Jinby. I would prefer to see both of them in the team. That's just my personal opinion. Liam Baker seems to be highlighted for a backline role. If you look at the wings and the backs there, I'd say Liam Baker, Jaden Hunt, Liam Duggan, Ruben Jimby could all rotate. I mean, you could say the same thing about Ryan Marek. So there's flexibility there. I imagine Baker spends a little bit of time in the midfield and on a wing. And similarly, Hunt and Duggan probably spend some time backward of center as well. So there's some rotation flexibility there, but that's the way I've lined it up. The midfield remains pretty much unchanged. I've decided with Bailey Williams, I think he's just a nose ahead of Matt Flynn at the moment. I would rather pick just one of those players, not both. That is my strong preference given our tall talent at the moment. It just does not allow for us to play two forwards and play Jack Williams in this team. Jack Williams is a lock. He's a bigger lock than either of Bailey or Matt. So we need to decide between one of them. I'm not super concerned who they choose. I think it's fairly even at this point, but I think Bailey's younger and I've seen him play better. So at this point, he's my preference. And Yo, Kelly, and Reed are probably still the starting 3 midfielders. Forward line has a new addition of Matt Owies, Oscar Allen, Waterman, Jack Williams picked themselves. Liam Ryan, I still think picks himself. I know, he drew some criticism last year, but I still think for what he brings, there's no real replacement for him at the moment. Elijah Hewitt makes it as a forward midfielder. I do think, it sounds like he's in good shape. Even if he's in top shape at the moment, I don't expect him to play permanent midfield. He's going to have to rotate there. But if he is in good shape, he could spend a fair bit of time in the midfield, maybe not as much as Harley. He attended 80% of centre bounces, or 70, and maybe it dropped away late. But Hewitt may not have as much time on ball as that, but he should still get a good chunk of time on ball. And he has an aerial game and some goal sense about him. So I could see him impacting forward and in the midfield. Big fan, Elijah. With the bench, I have gone with 1 defender, 2 midfielders, and a forward, plus the sub. So Jamie Cripps makes this team for his defensive running and his leadership. However, I do think he needs to perform this year to stay in the side, and I don't know if he'd keep his spot for the entire year. I think he's a little bit on thin ice, and there might be a little bit of age discrimination against him as well, and I think that's probably fair enough given where we are, but he'll stay in the side. Tom Cole, I also probably like more than the average punter based on what I've seen here. I still think he has a lot to offer as a mature defender who can play a role. If he gets fit, I'll start him in the side round 1 as the 7th defender. And then obviously, hopefully guys from underneath are pushing up. Hutchinson makes this team for the upside. He's mature as well. He's 23 now. I think giving him games, whether it be as a forward or a midfielder, I've sort of got him as a midfield rotation here, but there's other midfield rotations around the field. So even if he doesn't spend a whole heap of time on ball, we know he can play forward. Massey described him as being able to play back as well when we drafted him. So positionally, some flexibility there. And Jack Graham comes in as a genuine midfield rotation there. The sub, I've gone with Bo Allen, and I just couldn't quite squeeze him into this team, and I think he makes more sense as the sub than Tom Cole, because Bo can play all 3 positions really. He played a little bit of forward in his junior years. Primarily, I think he's an intercepting running defender, and if we need to chuck him on ball for a little bit of exposure, I think he has that flexibility. So I've given Tom Cole the start, and we ease Bo Allen into it. But either way, I think Bo Allen is in that team for round 1 against Gold Coast if he's fit. So there's a few notable omissions there. Noah Long I think this is the first time I've ever had him outside the 22. I think he's just probably unlucky, the timing of that injury, the fact he's still on a modified program. And if we're being honest, like, how well has he performed against someone like an Elijah Hewitt? And with Matt Owies coming in, it's a choice between Noah Long and Jamie Cripps. And I decided to go for the defensively minded Jamie Cripps, given that Noah Long can still develop in the WAFL, build his confidence, and perhaps be that Cripps replacement, maybe by round 2 or whatever. But I'd start with Cripps being very conservative and have Noah Long in the WAFL. I also omitted Tyrell Dewar and Harvey Johnston. Those guys are so close to breaking into the team, but they're not so well evolved yet that they can't develop in the WAFL still. So hopefully they earn their way back into the team, but that's a good position to be in. Now that we've actually got some depth, we've still got some good young prospects in that first 23 I mentioned. So let's talk about the WAFL team here. I'll get it up. Players in green and new, players in red is Kobe Bergiel. Look, that may not be Bergiel. That could be another train-on player. It could be Michael Selwood. It could be Sandy Brock. I'm not too sure at this current point in time, but I've chucked him in that halfback spot for the time being. So players in green and new. We'll start with the back line. Grego comes in as that small defender, and the talls are Jamison, Barnett, and Bazzo. I've doubled down with Barnett as a backman. I still think maybe he does second ruck, but maybe he's second ruck and key back in the WAFL, and we just see, what he shows some growth in. I'm not necessarily fixated on him playing key back. If I back him into playing the ruck, that's fine, but we do have Matthew Flynn as the number 1 ruck in his team with Colin Livingston too. So perhaps Barnett down back is not the worst shout. Either way, we'll just keep it as a second position for him as another ruck. Harvey Johnston I like off half back for the time being as well. One thing that's the issue with that first 23 is this: it's got speed and rebound. It doesn't have a lot of class and good ball use. So Harvey Johnston, that could be his avenue into the team. He'll be sort of that unaccountable defender. He's still pretty skinny. He's a midfielder forward who's probably going to play behind the ball, in my opinion, and use his foot skills to help drive the footy from the back half. So I like that. He just starts outside the team for me. I've had to push up some players that I would normally chuck in the forward line on the wings because of the depth we have in the forward half. But we'll start with the wings. Petrocelli and Hamish Davis. Hamish Davis probably is a high half forward, but he can play wing. He's moved up the ground. He's been well performed at WAFL level and seniors level specifically. So I would have no concern about playing him on a wing by round 1 of the WAFL team and potentially rotate with someone like a Tyrell Dewar. The on-ball division, I'm still going with Clay Hall, Campbell Chester, and Dom Sheed. I'm not sure if Dom Sheed is even going to be fit by round 1, but if he is, I'd still put him in the WAFL, and hopefully, he is fit and he can provide some support, because that midfield is looking fairly thin and definitely very young. Matthew Flynn as the number 1 ruck in the WAFL. Like I said, that could easily be Bailey Williams. I'd just rather not have both of them in the 22 for the AFL side. The forward line is an interesting one. We got Tyrell Dewar on a flank, Job Shanahan named at centre half forward. Again, he could play back. I'm not too sure until we hear some confirmation from the club that he could play back. I'm not sure, but maybe he plays as a swingman at this level. It would be great to see him play either end of the ground, to be honest. Tyler Brockman off a flank, Noah Long unlucky not to make the first team, Archer Reid and Colin Livingston. And on the bench, we have 2 small forwards in Locke Rawlinson and Malachi Champion, and we have Tom Gross as the first reserve midfielder. So it's pretty forward half heavy. We kind of knew that. Even the wings are probably more forwards than they are wingmen or midfielders at this point in time, but those are kind of just the needs of the team. Brockman can play a little bit on ball, as can Noah Long. He can at least push up at WAFL level. Tyrell Dewar can play on a wing too. So that's all good. The forwards can push back a little bit, but we still don't have as much depth in the back half as we do in the front half. But generally speaking, it's not too bad. Obviously, the first reserve midfielders, still very speculative. Campbell Chester will probably play on ball. Maybe he plays back, but then you have to find another midfield rotation there. And especially if Dom Sheed doesn't play for our WAFL team, the balance of that is a little bit off. But maybe Chester is a defender midfielder. So I didn't pick any emergencies, but if I had to pick some of the guys that I'd like to be like just about first in for the AFL side, I'd imagine, like I said, Harvey Johnston, Tyrell Dewar. These guys prove that they can show flashes at AFL level already, and if they've developed over the preseason, this will be Tyrell Dewar's second full preseason. There's heaps of potential for him to break into the team. Clay Hall as well. Again, I think slow and steady with Clay. I think for the role he plays as that inside midfielder, it's going to take him some time before he can do that at AFL level, and I don't know if he fully absolutely smashed it in the WAFL last year. He put up some solid numbers for an 18-year-old. That's all well and good, but I think there's still some more growth in the WAFL first before pushing into the AFL team. That being said, between Campbell Chester Tom Gross and Dom Sheed, he still may be the next preferred midfielder. Noah Long, we spoke about, is probably actually, ahead of Tyrell Dewar in the pecking order there. I suppose it comes down to who's missing from the first team. And Jobe Shanahan, I do think, the way he plays, he could get some games, maybe 4 or 5 in his first season. But I think there's no issue with him starting in the WAFL. And if we use his VFL form as a bit of a preview, I have no doubt that he's going to perform well in the WAFL, which is a weaker competition. Now, it might be harder if he's playing in the forward 50. So if he goes back, maybe he becomes an absolute jet. And then maybe he's putting pressure on Ryan Marrick. But this is good that in the sense that this is the first time in a while I've actually had to leave out some players I'd rather keep in the 23. Normally, you're picking the best 14 and you're like, all right, who are the other 9 players we're going to cram into this best 23? Now we've got some depth, which is nice. So again, probably still need to add some quality midfield options, absolutely, particularly ones that can run and carry and accumulate and use the ball well, particularly. The key defensive depth there, look, there's 3 tall defenders I've picked there, but there's question marks on all of them. I feel comfortable with Bazo. I think he's going to be all right, but I still wouldn't leave it there. And if we have multiple injuries in the back half next year to talls, we could get exposed. We'd probably be then relying on someone like a Jinbi to play centre half back, for multiple weeks. But at least the players exist, and hopefully they will have good seasons and push into the AFL team. So those are my thoughts on the depth. Generally speaking, this has been a big transformation. I read a post from Kai's on Big Footy, and he said, I think we have 14 players left from 2021, and I think 7 premiership players left. So the transformation of this list has been really profound. We did start this process in 2021. We were a little bit hamstrung at the time because we didn't have good draft picks because we started the year well, so we finished mid-table. But from that draft onwards, there has been a clear push towards youth, and more than half the list is under 21 now, I think. And I think there's 5 players over 30, he also said. So we'll have a look at when the age demographic stats come out. That should be probably in the next week or so on the AFL website, and I'll do a video reacting to that. But, I'd imagine we're probably in the bottom handful. Mind you, North did add some experienced players that are older than the ones we brought in, but they also had some retirements. So yeah, we might still be older than North, but it shows the transformation of this list. That'll do for me for now, guys. Let me know what you thought on jumper numbers, best 23, WAFL best 23. I'm sure we'll all have different opinions about how exactly we picked this team, but the silver lining of the reality that we're going to have some injuries means we're going to see some of those guys I've picked in the WAFL team probably play round 1. But for me, for now, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to have the weekend off this weekend. It's been fantastic covering this draft process with you. I'm not going anywhere just yet. Next week, I'll kick back in, do some videos, and then I fly in about 12 days from now or something like that. So long story short, you'll see me again, but we are winding to a close on the 2024 season. It's been fantastic. Appreciate all your input. I haven't had a chance to reply to heaps of comments yet. It's been literally the busiest 48 hours this channel has seen all year. Draft day is the busiest 48 hours. But I appreciate your input. I appreciate your support, all the lovely comments. It's been great. It's been a fantastic experience doing this channel. And for now, enjoy your weekends. I'll see you next week, guys. Cheers.